But then the Storm get 40 put on them by the Dolphins.
Yeah, that was bizarre. Not so much bizarre with Panthers, because I said last week there's still effort areas in their game, and at their best they're going to win a lot of games in this competition, and they proved that again the other night. They really, as that game wore on, they were a little bit nervous early, they were a little bit clunky early, but as the game wore on and they got back into their rhythm and they could see that they were just wearing the Roosters down and Roosters couldn't cope, they got more and more confident in their play. All of a sudden the passes started to stick and they were running in some points. And it was the Panthers of old, or Panthers of what we've seen the last few years, despite the fact there's been a lot of changes to their team. The Storm one was interesting. Now, they've had a couple of games this year where they've run out to 40-point leads at half-time and then lost the second half. The other night I was watching the game and I sat there, I said, at 16-2, I thought, if Dolphins score next, they're a chance. You could just feel it with the Melbourne Storm. They have that flashy period where they score 3 tries or 4 tries, and then all of a sudden it sort of just mellows. And if the other team is still willing and still able to stay in the fight, it gave them a chance, particularly the Dolphins, who've got a lot of attack in them. And Melbourne Storm had no answer to them. You know, from sort of about the 20-minute mark until the end of the game, they had no answer to the Dolphins.
Cam, the Storm, what do you reckon the reaction from Bellyache will be?
Well, if you've seen him game night, Brace, and you and I were there, like he was bewildered by what was happening. I don't think he had answers either, and he said so as much in his press conference after the game. It was the first time he'd ever coached the Melbourne Storm side where they were out to a 16-2 lead, and then went on to concede 40 points. Like I don't know what went wrong with their second half. They just couldn't stop the momentum that the Dolphins built in that 40 minutes. Now, they did cop Jack Howarth went off with an injury. They lost another player, I believe, as well. But so did the Dolphins. Like Max Plath went off within the first 10 minutes with a foot injury. Felice Kafusi didn't finish the game. So the Dolphins were in the same situation. It's a bit of a trend that I'm seeing from the Storm this year. Gus mentioned it. Like you go back a week ago, they go out to, 36-0 at halftime, I think it was, against the Warriors, and then they lose the second half. It was a similar situation against Manly at Brookvale, the Battle of Brookie. They had an amazing first half of footy. I think Manly beat them on the scoreboard in the second half, but they got the win. So I don't know if it's a point of they try and blast teams off the park in the first 40 minutes and then try and coast home. Well, if you're going to try and do that, then you're going to get embarrassed like you did against the Dolphins more times than not.
Could you pick your grand finalists from this point, Gal?
No chance. I'm loving the competition. Everyone's beating everyone. It's a tipster's nightmare. It's killing us, but it's good competition. Every single game is interesting, and I agree with the boys too about the Melbourne Storm. Round one, they led by 46 points round one, and then they lost second half there too. So a few concerns for Craig Bellamy. Obviously, when you talk about roster, they've probably got the best roster. Can they put it all together? Time will tell.